Here are 5 tips that are going to get you hitting a perfect topspin one-handed backhand. Now, to help me demonstrate these tips, I've got the Topspin Pro here. To get your own for at-home practice, you can use my link. It's in the description. I'm also going to pin it in the first comment. It would mean the world to me if you used my link to get a Topspin Pro. All right, tip number 1, it's all about the grip. Check out this graphic. You want to use the Eastern backhand grip. This places the base knuckle of your index finger and your heel pad on panel number 1. Now, to help you find this grip, here's one little extra piece of info that really helps one-handers especially. And the reason I'm saying one-handers is one-handers have a much farther distance to go compared to a two-hander to find the grip. Use your top hand to turn the racket. Don't just think that going from a forehand grip to a backhand grip is done solely with your bottom hand, but use your top hand on the throat of the racket and turn the racket. When you do that, it's much easier to get a complete grip change and it's faster as well. Tip number 2, when you turn, focus on 3 things. When you turn, have your hitting arm extended and tucked in against the body. Have your back elbow up so there's a 90-degree difference between your racket and your back elbow. And have the tip of the racket facing up with your strings facing to the side. The racket should be very vertical in the turn. This is typically what I see. The hitting arm bent and away from the body, back elbow down, and the strings are up. When you're in this position, it probably leads you to find this video as well and search for it, but it makes you want to swing across and you'll get a ton of side spin. You're not going to get the top spin you're looking for. Yes, there are examples of pros who will be wide open on their turn. James Blake, one of my favorite players growing up when I was a kid, his racket was wide open. He was also number 4 in the world. So if you're as athletic as James Blake and you practice as much as he did, sure, go ahead, have the racket open. But if you're like everyone else, including myself, have the hitting arm extended and tucked in against the body, back elbow up, and the racket very vertical. Now, this is going to help you to accomplish tip number 3, which is dropping the racket and the body, so everything drops, and closing the racket face with both hands on the racket. Do not let go as you drop the racket. We want to drop with both hands. Our non-hitting hand is on the throat of the racket, helping us close the face, which is going to make it so much easier to swing away from the body and hit topspin. Most recreational players I see let go way too soon, which means they do the counterweight too soon, and that's why they open up. If you're someone who always opens up on your one-handed backhand and you're trying to stay sideways, which will be tip number 5, the way to actually accomplish that is to keep your non-hitting hand on the racket longer. We want to drop with both hands, basically taking the back of our non-hitting hand and touching our back knee. When you do that, now both hands have stayed on the racket long enough, that's when you let go. So don't drop with one hand, you're going to drop with both hands. The one-handed backhand is more two-handed than you think. You don't want to think of the one-handed backhand as being one-hander. You want to think of the one-handed backhand as being two-handed on the turn, two-handed on the drop, and then once the racket's all the way down, then you can let go and start to move that non-hitting arm back. Now, talking about contact and actually hitting topspin, this is key. When you close your racket face prior to hitting the ball, that's what allows for your racket to be spinning up the back of the ball. You can either have your racket very straight up and down at contact or ever so slightly closed, especially if you have enough racket speed as you're driving up and through contact. Most players, they have their racket straight up and down where it looks like this. When they drop the racket, especially those who let go too soon, you could take a coin on the edge of their racket. They do that because they're thinking, oh, when I get to the ball, I want my racket straight up and down. The problem is the only way to do that is to either swing flat into the ball and send it straight into the net, or if you do drop below the ball and your racket's not closed, your racket will be wide open and the ball's going to go over the fence. So you must close the racket face for tip number 3, as we talked about. That's what allows you to spin up the back of the ball. The really nice thing about the Topspin Pro is you can see the ball spin. So because we can see the ball spin, we get the instant feedback. We get the feel and the look of what topspin is. This way we actually know that we're doing it correctly. So when you hit the ball, we're trying to spin the ball. Yes, there is a forward component to this, but if you can swing more vertically than horizontally on your backhand, you're going to get the topspin that you're looking for. When it comes to the finish, it is called the left side of the letter V. When you are done, well, that's if you're right-handed. When you are done, I recommend having the racket to the left of your hand as a righty. If you're a lefty, you're going to look like this. That's an ugly lefty one-handed backhand, but you can see the racket off to the right of my hand. The reason for this is because it makes sure that you're not rolling the racket and supinating as you hit. It also makes sure that you're not flicking the wrist and changing where the strings are pointing. See, before you hit the ball, your string should be facing down. As you're hitting the ball, your string should be facing forward toward your target. And then when you're done, you actually want the strings facing up, not flat, where as a righty, my racket is over at 9 o'clock. But I don't want you straight up in the air either. Think about being at 11 o'clock, 10:30, somewhere in that range. That gives you a very stable wrist position. Yes, you can hit cross court, down the line, you can hit the ball anywhere. It's especially important when you're hitting a return of serve, when your opponent's at the net and you just want to be very stable with your wrist position. Anytime you're taking the ball on the rise and you just want to add a ton of control, that finish where as a righty, you have the racket to the left of your hand, and reverse that if you're a lefty, the racket on the hitting side of your hand, arms going back, it's like you're pinching your shoulders back as you hit the ball. That type of finish is going to give you a ton of control. All right, let me hit a couple backhands here, and I'll do it from a couple different angles. So I've got my forehand grip, my elbows are out, split, I change, and I'm working on what we just worked on. Show you from the back. Last one. Now, if you're looking for new people in your local area to play matches against or practice with, or you want to find a coach who's close to you who can help you with your game, then use my link for PlayYourCourt, and it's playyourcourt.com/2minutetennis. When you use my link to sign up, you get 50% off. Film yourself. If you have a Topspin Pro, go out in your driveway like I am and practice one-handed backhands. Go through the footage. Check out, based on what you just learned in this video, if you're doing all 5 things. If you do, there's no doubt you're going to gain confidence, win more matches, and play much better tennis. This is Ryan Reedy from 2minutetennis.net. You got this.